Mike, Rebecca, Austin Travis County medics say their current starting wage, $19.56 an hour, just isn't enough to get by, with one medic whom you're about to meet qualifying for government food assistance. It comes as EMS contract talks continue today, with the city giving its latest offer of $22 even, up a little over $2 from its original offer. But the union says their demand today, $24.70, is as low as they can go for workers who risk and sacrifice so much.
For me, honestly, it's being able to genuinely help.
Meet Austin Travis County paramedic Patrick Swift. Following the footsteps of his father, who was a medic in New York City, he says the level of risk and trauma he and his brothers and sisters have been exposed to in the last 2 years has gone through the roof.
We showed up.
From COVID to the winter storms to an increase in crime and mental illness spilling out onto the streets.
A fire truck has 4 men on the engine, and they have axes and crowbars, and if they had to defend themselves. And police officers have tasers and guns and pepper spray. And with us, it's 2 bulletproof vests and situational awareness.
But Swift's 2 years of experience in Austin puts his hourly wage at just under $21, a full $9 less than what APD officers start at.
We're paid less than a day manager at Buc-ee's. We make less money than the people who drive the Cap Metro buses. And that's not to take away from what any of those people do for a living. But none of them have had to hand a dead infant back to their mom and say, "I'm so sorry. I couldn't do any more."
He says it's not just insulting, it's unlivable. He lives in Taylor with his wife, who works as a social worker, and his 4 kids because they can't afford to live in Austin.
I just can't imagine how that seems equitable to anyone.
The worst moment for him?
When I had my son in December, that we qualified for WIC. And we took it. It was like someone punched me in the stomach. I'm working, I go to work every day, I'm not injured, I'm putting in my time. How come I can't feed my kids?
This is an actual crisis, and I really feel like the city manager is treating this like a game.
Austin EMS Association head Selena Shia says Swift is far from alone, with 26% of her medics eligible for Section 8 housing.
The city of Austin's wage offer to us is actually a pay cut given inflation and the cost of living in Austin.
The city points out its latest offer of $22 an hour amounts to a more than 10% raise for medics starting out. But Shia says it doesn't cut it, given what she calls a dire staffing situation.
We're 25% short. At 25% short, that's more than any other city department. That's 2 times how short the police officers are. And so our department will implode.
Medics are leaving for other fields, she says, because they're sick of scraping by.
In the last few years, we really have had to help out more medics than ever through our relief fund. Medics needing assistance with rent, needing assistance with just paying certain bills.
A living wage in Austin is no longer $15. It's no longer $19.
But the city of Austin currently lists the living wage at $15, a number established in 2018. Public Safety Commission Chair Rebecca Bernhardt says that's ridiculous.
The city of Austin seems to be negotiating from a place of using old numbers. It's not taking into account the change in the cost of housing or the overall change in the cost of living.
For Patrick Swift, that boils down to not being able to do things for his kids, like piano lessons, cheerleading, or taking them out for their birthday. If something doesn't give here, what does that mean? What does that look like for you?
I can't do this if it gets much worse. I'm gonna have to, I'm already starting to consider other options. I find it harder and harder to look at my wife in the face and say, no, it matters too much to me to serve the city of Austin to keep living like this.
Now, the city released a statement following today's contract negotiations. It reads in part, quote, by providing almost $20 million in additional pay over 4 years, we are responding to the very real financial pressures facing many of our workers while accounting for the fiscal responsibility we owe to our taxpayers. The union's current proposal is far greater than the city's current offer during this time of ever-increasing fiscal constraints. Now, medics aren't the only city workers who are struggling. Coming up tomorrow night at 9, we'll look at the push to raise the living wage threshold for all city workers. We'll talk with city council members about what more needs to be done, and we'll dig into what the experts say about what a true living wage is here in Austin. Live in the studio tonight, I'm John Krinjak, Fox 7 Austin News.